You back a brand new ute into one of those trolley bays at the shopping centre, barely moving. You feel that soft crunch come up through the seat, the one that for most of your life meant nothing at all. A scuffed bar, a bit of a dent, $100 and a swear word, and you got on with your day. So you climb out, walk around the back, and have a look. The rear corner's pushed in about the width of your hand. Annoying, sure. Not the end of the world. You've dinged a work truck before, so you take it down to a smash repairer, expecting a quote that roughly matches the size of the mark. And the bloke behind the counter goes quiet, taps away at his screen for a bit, and then he turns the monitor around to face you. And the number sitting on it has an extra digit that you were in no way ready for. And here's the thing, the dent is not the expensive part. The dent is $50 of pressed steel and an afternoon with a mallet. What's expensive is what's sitting behind it. Under the floor of that ute is a lithium battery worth more than some second-hand cars, and it's wired into the chassis so tightly you can't just unbolt the bruised bit. The bumper you crunched has a radar unit hiding inside it, aimed to the millimeter. The whole back corner has to come off. The sensors recalibrated to the factory's exact numbers, and half the parts are on a boat somewhere between here and China. I've had my hands deep in the guts of enough of these trucks now to tell you the panel is the very least of it. So let me talk to you about a headline you've probably already seen, because it's likely the reason you're here. The one that says Australian insurers are quietly refusing to cover certain features on the new Chinese utes. And I want to be straight with you, right from the start. There is no secret list. No underwriter anywhere has printed a memo that says we will not cover the touchscreen. That's just not how any of this works. What's actually going on is quieter than that. And honestly, it's worse, because you don't find out about it until the exact day you were counting on the money to be there. So by the end of this, you'll know the 7 things on these trucks that quietly push your premium up, drop your ute over the write-off line for a prang that should have buffed straight out, and hand the insurer a clean technicality to knock your claim back. And there's one on this list that turns your own ute into the informant that reprices your policy behind your back. Stay with me for that one especially. It's number 4, and it's the one that got under my skin the most. Let me set the table quickly because I don't want you walking away thinking this is about picking on a country. The Chinese Utes, the BYD Shark 6, the GWM Cannon, and the bigger Cannon Alpha, the JAC Hunter that's landing, these things went from a punchline to genuinely outselling established gear in a couple of years. And they're not being singled out for being Chinese. That's not it at all. They're being priced for what they actually are, which is cheap to buy, absolutely packed with technology, and built as a rolling computer that happens to have a tray on the back. Every one of these 7 features is real. It's on the trucks right now. And each one does something very specific to what happens the moment metal meets metal. And I want you to hold one idea the whole way through, because it's the thread that ties all 7 together. The old Ute was a dumb, tough, honest tool that you owned outright. The new one is a computer you're more or less licensed to drive. Watch how much that one shift changes. Number one is the battery sitting under the floor, and it's the foundation for half of what follows. The Shark 6 carries a 29.58 kilowatt-hour blade battery. The JC Hunters is around 31. The GWM sits in the same neighborhood. On the spec sheet, it's just a line about range. Here's what it actually means for you. BYD themselves will proudly tell you the battery is built into the structure of the truck. It's part of the chassis. Adds about 22% to the rigidity, they say. That's lovely for how it drives down the road. It is a genuine problem the day you hit something. Because on the old Ute, the frame was the frame and the fuel tank simply hung off it. You bent the frame and a fella with a chassis jig pulled it straight again over a couple of days. On this, the thing holding the entire truck together and the single most expensive component in it are now the same object. So a decent underbody knock or a rear hit that reaches into the pack, and you are no longer repairing a panel. You're talking about a battery. In this country, insurers are pricing against battery damage figures that run from about $15,000 up to $40,000 on the bigger electric cars. Now, these Ute packs are smaller than a full electric cars, so you're usually not at the very top of that range. But it's still a 5-figure part, and there's a much shorter list of workshops actually certified to safely pull a high-voltage battery, which means the truck sits waiting and there's a hire car ticking over on the insurer's tab the whole time. And on top of all that, a damaged lithium pack can reignite days after the crash. So a lot of these get written off out of pure caution rather than repaired at all. That is the mechanism behind the quote that didn't match the dent. The steel was nothing. The thing behind the steel decides whether your truck lives or dies. Number two is the party trick that makes an underwriter shift in his seat. These Utes give you power out. Vehicle to load, they call it. 6.5 kilowatts on the Shark, 230-volt sockets built into the tray. You can run a fridge, a full set of power tools, a welder, boil the kettle out in the middle of nowhere. And I'm not knocking it, it's a properly useful thing to have. But sit with what it actually is for a second. Your truck is now a portable generator, tapping into that huge battery, feeding real mains level current into whatever you plug into it. And that opens a door insurers are not fond of. If the thing you're powering catches fire, or someone cops a belt off it, or your export rig cooks a mate's caravan, now whose policy pays out, and for what exactly? It sits in a grey area somewhere between your car insurance, your public liability, and nobody's at all. And a lot of standard car policies quietly assume the truck is for private use. The moment you're running a worksite off the tray, you may have drifted closer to commercial use than the fine print in your policy actually allows, and you'd never know until you read it under pressure. Nobody refuses to cover the socket, but the day something you plugged into it goes wrong, that's the day you find out precisely where the edges of your policy sit. Old Ute, if you wanted power on site, you carried a Jenny, and the Jenny was its own separate thing with its own separate risk. New Ute, the Jenny is the truck, and the truck is your daily driver, and the lines all blur together. Number three is the one that turns a nothing little prang into a genuinely serious bill. These trucks come absolutely loaded with eyes. 360-degree surround cameras, blind spot sensors tucked into the mirrors, radar behind the grille, a forward-facing camera glued to the windscreen. Auto braking that's watching the road ahead the whole time. And I'll give them full credit, the safety is real. The Shark 6 has got the 5-star ANCAP rating to back it up, tested properly, but every single one of those eyes is a part, and a part that has to be told exactly where it's pointing. So you clip a bollard and cave in the front bar, and it's not just a bar anymore. Pull that bumper off, and the radar that was living behind it has to be recalibrated to the factory's numbers before the auto braking can be trusted to work again. Recalibration in Australia starts at around $305, and that's per event, per system, sitting on top of the cost of the parts. Replace a windscreen, a stone chip, happens to everyone eventually, and the forward camera behind it needs doing too. Now stack all of that onto a truck where the sensor parts arrive from overseas on a lead time. A low-speed knock that on an old Hilux was a Saturday with a rubber mallet and a bit of touch-up paint is now 4 figures of parts and calibration, and every dollar of that quietly walks you closer to the write-off line. Here's the proof this isn't just me talking. Over in Britain, the number of cars being written off climbed sharply over the last few years, and the accident industry put a chunk of the blame directly on the cost and complexity of fixing cars stuffed with this exact driver assist gear. And here's what makes that bite even harder on these particular trucks. Chinese Utes depreciate faster than the Toyotas, and the Fords do. So the value the insurer is quietly measuring the repair bill against is dropping quicker underneath you, which means it takes less and less damage to tip one of these over the write-off line as the years go by. And once a truck has been written off and then repaired, it's branded on the register for the rest of its life, which craters whatever you can ever sell it for and makes reinsuring the thing its own separate headache down the road. The safety tech that stops the big crash is the very same tech that makes all the little crashes expensive. Number 4, this is the one I told you to wait for. Every one of these Utes is a connected car. Built-in SIM card, talks to the internet, updates itself over the air while it sits in your driveway. BYD pushed a brand new off-road crawl mode out to more than 24,000 Aussie Sharks. Overnight, no dealer visit, no appointment. Handy. But sit with what a connected car genuinely does. It watches. A modern connected vehicle can generate something in the order of 1,400 gigabytes of data an hour. How hard you brake, how fast you take a corner, where you go, what time you leave. Most of it gets binned, but a slice of it heads home to the manufacturer. And here's where it stops being abstract and starts costing real people real money. Over in the States, General Motors got caught red-handed selling driving data off its own customers' cars to a data broker. And that broker sold it straight on to insurance companies. And people watched their premiums jump on the strength of information their own car had quietly volunteered about them. Your own truck informing on you to the very company you pay to insure it. And this isn't some far off worry. In Australia right now, the privacy regulator has 2 live investigations running into Asian car makers over exactly this kind of data collection. It got real enough that when thousands of Chinese-made connected cars were parked up in a lot near one of our main Air Force bases, it made national news and genuinely rattled the people whose whole job is national security. And for a simple reason. These things carry cameras, they carry microphones for the voice control, and they carry a live link to the internet. Our own intelligence agencies have come right out and warned that the data your car quietly collects can end up stored overseas, in a country where Australian privacy law doesn't reach it at all. And from the end of 2026, there are brand new rules coming in about telematics data being used to price your insurance, which tells you everything you need to know about the direction this is all heading. 2 more things while we're here. An over-the-air update can change how your truck behaves after you're already insured. So the thing the underwriter looked at and priced is quietly not quite the thing sitting in your driveway anymore. And a truck that can be reached and updated remotely is, in principle, a truck that can be reached remotely by someone you didn't invite, which is a whole new category of risk the old Ute simply did not carry, for the very simple reason that the old Ute couldn't be talked to. It just sat there, did its job, and told nobody anything about you. Number 5 is the hands-off-ish driving, lane keep that actually steers the truck, adaptive cruise that brakes and accelerates for you, highway assist that'll hold the lane while you just sit there with your hands hovering. On the new Utes, it's standard, and most of the time, honestly, it's fine. The insurance problem is not when it works, it's when it doesn't, and the very messy question of who exactly was driving. If the truck was steering itself and it got it wrong, are you at fault or is the software? Right now, legally you are. You're the driver, hands on the wheel or not. But that seam, that exact join, is precisely where a clean claim turns into a drawn-out argument, and arguments cost you time and money and your no-claim bonus. And these systems are not flawless, especially the newer ones on newer brands that are still sorting out their tune. And remember, these are brand new machines from brand new brands. The Canon Alpha on its own has already been recalled in this country more than once, and one of those was for a wiring fault that could rob you of your power steering or shut the engine down entirely without any warning. I'm not saying that to frighten you off the thing. I'm saying it because a brand that's only 3 years into this market is still actively ironing out its wiring and its software, and all that clever driver assist is riding directly on top of exactly that. Auto braking that reads a shadow, or an overpass, or a bit of glare as an obstacle, and stamps on the brakes on a completely clear road, they call it phantom braking. And it has rear-ended plenty of people who did absolutely nothing wrong. Try explaining that to the bloke who's just run into the back of you and doesn't believe a word of it. Brand new complex software on a truck you've owned for a fortnight, making split-second decisions about your safety. When it's right, it's a guardian angel. When it's wrong, it's a co-defendant. Number 6. Sit inside a Shark 6, and there's a 15.6-inch screen mounted in the middle of the dash that physically swivels around, portrait to landscape, like something off a spaceship. Looks the absolute business in the showroom. Here's the catch nobody mentions while you're signing. On these trucks, that screen is not the stereo. That screen is the truck. Your climate control lives in it, your mirror adjustment lives in it, your drive modes, half your settings, all of it lives behind that one pane of glass. So you crack it, or it simply dies one morning, and you haven't lost the radio. You've potentially lost the ability to change the temperature in the cabin, or aim your mirrors. And these panels are savage money. Across the wider industry, a central screen can run close to a third of what a cheaper car is even worth, enough that a broken screen on a 4-year-old car can total the whole thing on its own. Now here's the insurance sting on top. A lot of standard comprehensive policies won't touch the screen at all unless a covered collision was what broke it. So a stone flicks up off the highway and stars it, or someone smashes the window in a car park and cracks the display reaching in, and that can land squarely in your lap, out of your own pocket, on a truck that's already busy dropping in value. Old Ute, the knob for the heater cost you $5, and you could swap it yourself with a screwdriver in the driveway. New Ute, the heater knob is a cinema screen, and when it breaks, the truck starts arguing about whether it's even drivable. Number 7, and it's the one that catches the most honest, hardest working owners of the lot. These Utes are sold cheap, and they're sold as a blank canvas. Go on, build it, make it yours. There's a 1,140 kilogram gross vehicle mass upgrade kit for the Shark. Heavy duty trays, and the whole enormous aftermarket world of bull bars, lift kits, dual battery and lithium auxiliary setups. And here's the trap, and it has got nothing whatsoever to do with the mod being any good or not. If you fit a modification and you don't tell your insurer, or you fit one that needed engineering certification and you skipped it, your claim can be knocked back, even if the mod had absolutely nothing to do with the crash. A fellow in Brisbane learned this the hardest possible way, crashed a car that had uncertified suspension fitted, and the insurer denied the claim outright and left him personally wearing more than $30,000 of the other party's damage. The suspension didn't cause the crash. It didn't have to. It was undeclared and uncertified, and that alone was enough. An uncertified gross vehicle mass upgrade or an unapproved lift kit can make the truck legally unroadworthy. And an unroadworthy truck is an uninsured truck. The whole culture around these Utes marches you straight toward the two levers. An insurer can pull, you didn't declare it, or it wasn't certified. And most people bolting on a tray and a bar out in the shed have no earthly idea they've just tripped either one. So let's step back, because this is the part that actually matters, and it is not what the headline sold you. Look at all 7 of those things laid out together, and you start to notice they're really the same feature wearing 7 different hats. And that feature is complexity. The huge battery, the export power, the sensor suite, the connected brain, the self-steering, the cinema screen dash, the endless mod potential. Every single one of them was sold to you as value. Look how much truck you get for the money. And every single one of them is also the exact thing that makes the truck expensive to fix, easy to total, murky to insure, and full of fine print landmines. That is not a coincidence. That is the business model. There is no money in a dumb, simple, panel-beatable Ute that any bush mechanic can put right with a mallet and a socket set. A truck like that, you buy it once, keep it 20 years, and nobody makes another cent off you ever again. There is a great deal of money in a rolling computer with a battery worth more than the tray, money for the parts maker whose sensors only they are allowed to sell you, money for the dealer with the only calibration rig in town, money in the subscription, the software, and the data flowing quietly out the back of the thing. And now, with that connected brain, your own truck can feed the exact information an insurer uses to reprice you. The old model was beautifully simple. You owned the machine, and the risk was the machine's, and that was that. The new one, you're renting the use of a computer, and the risk is smeared across a dozen different parties who all take their little slice. And here's the honest part, because I'm not going to hand you a cartoon villain to be angry at. There isn't one. BYD and GWM aren't evil for building the exact thing people are lining up to buy. The insurer isn't crooked for pricing what's genuinely in front of it, which is a truck that is honestly more expensive to make whole after a prang. It's just a direction we're all drifting in. Complexity that's cheaper for them to replace than for anyone to sit down and understand. A truck that reports on you, because reporting is worth something to somebody. Corners that all happen to point the same way. Nobody sat in a meeting and decided to do this to you. It's just where the money runs downhill. And I reckon what actually gets lost in all of that is something quieter than dollars and cents. There was a time the Ute was the last honest machine a normal person owned. Not flash, didn't need to be. You could prang it against a gate post, hammer the panel roughly flat with your own 2 hands, and drive it another 200,000 kilometers without a specialist, without a subscription, without a recalibration. It was yours in the full old sense of the word. You could open it, understand it, fix it, and it owed its answers to nobody but you. That's a real thing to have in your life, and it's slipping away one clever feature at a time, and the Ute was honestly the last place I ever expected to lose it. When everything becomes a sealed box you're not allowed to open, even the tough, dumb, dependable old work truck, you don't just lose the money on the repair bill. You lose the quiet dignity of being able to do for yourself, of owning a thing outright instead of being licensed to use it. And that's the trade that nobody prints on the sticker. So here's what I actually want you to take away from all this, plainly and in order. 1. On these Utes, The cheap-looking damage very often isn't cheap at all, because the battery is part of the chassis, and the bumpers are full of sensors. So always get the real quote before you assume it'll just buff out. 2. If you run power out of that tray, know exactly where your policy ends and your personal liability begins before you plug anything in. 3. Budget for the fact that every camera and every radar means recalibration on top of the parts, and understand that it's pushing small knocks toward being total write-offs. 4. Take on board that a connected truck is watching, that its data can and does end up with insurers, and go and check what you actually agreed to when you set up that app. 5. Treat the driver assist as help, never as a driver, because you are still the one legally holding the wheel. 6. That beautiful screen runs the whole cabin, and standard cover often won't fix it unless a crash did, so protect it like the expensive thing it is. And 7, the big one. Declare every single modification in writing and certify anything that needs certifying before you fit it, because an undeclared or an uncertified mod can void your entire claim over something that never had anything to do with the crash. Do those 7 things, and you don't have to be even slightly afraid of these trucks. They're capable, they're strong value for the money, and plenty of people are perfectly, genuinely happy in theirs. You just want to walk in with your eyes wide open, knowing that the very tech that makes them impressive is the same tech that makes them expensive when it goes wrong. Picture the version of you that already knows every bit of this. You back into the trolley bay, you feel the crunch, and you don't panic. You know exactly what to ask, exactly what's covered, and exactly what to check before you sign a single thing. That's the whole point of this. Not fear, just knowing. Now, I genuinely want to hear from you because this is where I end up learning the most. Tell me down in the comments what you're driving. Shark, Cannon, Hunter, or one of the old faithful diesels that just won't die. And if you've had one of these newer trucks in for a prang, tell me what the quote came back at and whether the tech blew the number out the way I've been describing. I especially want to hear from the tradies and the tourers who've actually built these things up. Did your insurer play it straight with you on the mods, or did you find an edge you weren't expecting to be there? I read every one of these, and honestly, the stuff you tell me from your own driveways and your own sheds is worth more to me than any spec sheet ever printed, and it's a big part of why I keep making these. If this saved you a nasty surprise somewhere down the track, hit subscribe and stick around, because the next one is a good one. There is a phrase written on very nearly every automatic transmission sold today. Sealed for life, filled for life, never needs changing. And it is one of the most quietly expensive lies in the entire car industry. And I'm going to show you exactly who dreamed it up and exactly what it's really costing you every time you believe it. That one's going to make a few people angry, and frankly it should. Until then, get the real quote before you assume anything. Read the fine print while it's boring, instead of when it's urgent. And remember that the most expensive part of any modern truck is almost always the part you can't see. I'll catch you in the next one.